Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the National Good Food Network webinar, an introduction to the National Farm to School Network. My name is Jeff Fartman from the Wallace Center at Winrock International. One Wallace Center project is helping to coordinate the National Good Food Network, and more about that project in a few minutes. But first, let me just give you a quick introduction to the technical introduction for the webinar software. Your screen should look like this. There's the presentation area on the left and the control panel on the right. If your screen looks like this, your control panel is minimized. Here it is right over here. You'll probably want access to your control panel during the presentation, so if it is minimized, click the double arrow or orange arrow, and it will make it visible. To keep it visible, go to the View menu here and select Auto Hide the Control Panel. If you're calling in, make sure you select the audio mode for Use Telephone. Here's the dial-in instructions with the access code you'll be prompted for, and that audio pin is yours and yours alone. So that'll be there for you too. Though you are muted, we encourage you to interact with the panelists using, tell you about the audio portion here. You are muted, and you do also see the name of the person who's currently speaking. But though you are muted, we do encourage you to interact with the panelists using text. You can also communicate to tech support using this. Your submitted question appears in the questions log in gray, indicating that the panelists have received your question, though no one else on the cluster call on the webinar can see your question. When you do submit questions, please be specific and detailed, since due to the webinar format, your question may be answered later in a different context from when you ask it. Our panelists will be monitoring your questions as they come in. Some will be answered verbally after the formal presentations, but keep your eye on the questions box, since our panelists may also type answers to questions addressed to them. I encourage you to ask your questions early and often so that our panelists can address as many of your questions as possible. The webinar will be recorded. The audio and video will be archived on the ngfn.org website. The slides will be posted there, as well as a transcript of all the typed responses during the webinar. Also, previous National Good Food Network webinars are already archived there. Finally, I wanted to alert you that at the conclusion of the webinar, your browser will open, showing a very brief survey. Please take a minute or two to fill it out so that we can continue to make the webinars a valuable service to you. Also, there will be the ability to sign up for the National Good Food Network mailing list on the survey. Now I'd like to hand the mic over to the director of the Wallace Center at Winrock International, Dr. John Fisk, to introduce you to the National Good Food Network.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Fisk at the Wallace Center. I want to welcome you to the National Good Food Network webinar entitled An Introduction to the National Farm to School Network. I want to take just a minute to tell you about the NGFN, and then I'll introduce our first panelist. The National Good Food Network is managed by the Wallace Center at Winrock International and has a focus on what we call scaling up good food. Our vision is that using a market-based approach, that we can significantly increase the quantity of fair, green, healthy and affordable food in the food system. National Good Food Network members are from all parts of the food value chain, something we think is a strength, that we have cross-sector interaction from farmers and producers, processors, aggregators, and distributors. We've got retail, nonprofit people, TA providers, government folks, researchers, funders, and more. The aim is to support small and mid-sized producers who are using sustainable agricultural practices, as well as the people in the organizations that are supporting them and that want to do business with these folks. We work nationally, coordinating a group of 9 regional 8 teams, a structure that's not unlike the National Farm to School Network, which you'll hear more about soon. We're working hard to bring what we call the best knowledge, the brightest and most experienced practitioners, and the most illustrative case studies in order to accelerate and expand this work. To that end, today we present a webinar on the National Farm to School Network, which itself is an illustrative model that I think deserves a lot of attention. you know, the National Farm to School Network for us is an obvious partner. The formal beginning of our work together is going to be co-sponsorship at a Detroit May 2010 conference being led by the Farm to School Network that we're joining them on, so we look forward to that. Farm to School certainly has a lot of potential to use a market-based approach, and we'll hear more about that from Doug Davis today. And also we think that with government support, which will be illustrated by Megan Lott and Lauren LaCourte, that the strategy can even be more robust. So with that, let me introduce our first presenter, and we can get right to this. Anupama Joshi is the co-director of the National Farm to School Network and is based at the Center for Food and Justice, a division of the Urban and Environmental Policy Institute at Occidental College, which is in California. Since 2002, Ms. Joshi has been leading the creation of a movement of farm-to-school projects across the country. She brings over 15 years of experience working on nutrition, agriculture, and food systems in various countries around the world to her current work. With that, let me turn it over to you, Anupama.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody. I am delighted to be part of this webinar. My task today is to give you a brief overview of the National Farm to School Network and the work that we do, and also provide you some information on what services are available and resources are available through the National Farm to School Network. So to get started, just wanted to mention that the National Farm to School Network is a collaborative project, and it's a project that is led by the Center for Food and Justice, which is based at Occidental College, and the Community Food Security Coalition, which is a national membership-based organization. Can I have my first slide up, please? Thank you. So what I'd like to do is to start off with, can I have my second slide up, please? Thank you. So Farm to School has seen a phenomenal growth over the last decade or so. Just from a handful of programs a decade back, we have close to or more than 2,000 programs across the country now in 40 states and in reaching about more than 10,000 kids. Farm to School is really a win-win situation for all that are involved in the Farm to School approach, for the schools, for the students, for the farmers, for the communities, for the local economy, and for the environment. And I wanted to just take a couple of minutes to explain what we mean by Farm to School, because there is some confusion about the use of the word Farm to School. So what is Farm to School? It is, for us, really, it is a whole bunch of things for different people. And each program, I have to say, is unique and is different. But that is, in some ways, the beauty of the approach. But there are some overarching components that we say includes Farm to School. The first one being local foods and school meals. And this could be through the lunch program, through the breakfast program, or through snack programs. And a common question that we usually get is it just fruits and vegetables, which is the picture that you see. It is fruits and vegetables, but it is also local foods such as local meats, local beans, local honey, eggs, dairy products. It could be really any kinds of products that are grown in the local area or region that can be served in the schools. It is also school gardens, and the whole idea is to get kids excited about growing food and getting their hands dirty in growing food. Kids really are so excited when they plant a seed and see something grown, and then when that is served in the cafeteria, I think that is really rewarding for the kids. It is also, Farm to School is also making the connection for the kids via classroom education. So the connection with the classroom education and what is served in the cafeteria, and tying that in with standard-based curriculum that touches upon math, English, social sciences, you name it. You can really use food as an educational tool in a lot of different ways, and Farm to School does that effectively. It is also experiential education opportunities for kids, such as farm tours, and again, this is about reconnecting kids with the source of food. Many of our kids don't even know where food comes from. For them, pizza comes from Pizza Hut, and by getting them out to the farm and getting them to talk to farmers, it is really a learning process that they take with them throughout their lives. It's also about getting them excited about cooking and having chefs in the classroom to talk about cooking and different varieties of foods that really gets kids excited. It's also about other kinds of educational opportunities like waste management programs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So those are really the four key components of Farm to School as we see them. Like I said, there's various ways that Farm to School can be implemented, and in terms of the local procurement, there are various models out there. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but just to give you a sense that really directly from the farm is probably the simplest way that schools buy from local farmers, and then there's, as you go along, there could be more complicated ways that this could be done. Just to give you an example, in the Chicago area, the Chicago school system is served by a food service company called Chartwell Thompson's, and recently, over the last year, they've connected with a local processor to flash freeze carrots, zucchini, and other products that are grown in the region. And that has been a great success, the partnership with the food service company, the local processor, and local farmers to really get that product into the Chicago public school systems. And it's been so successful that they're projecting close to $1.8 million in local procurement this year, which is, I think, really significant. Moving on, the local product can be served a variety of different ways as well. It could be used in salad bars. It could be, which is a model that is that is quite popular in California and in other areas where there's year-round growing. It could be used as snacks. In Philadelphia, there's a kindergarten initiative that uses local products and then processes into snacks that are served to the kindergartners. It could also be used as local fundraisers, or some people call it farm raisers, since there are farm fresh products that are going into the fundraiser. And a lot of different states have good models for farm raisers, including New Mexico, Michigan, California, just to give you some examples. And then in terms of the educational models, there could be various ways as well. School gardens was mentioned. Recycling and waste management and composting programs are really a good way to incorporate the education about the entire life cycle of food from seed to table to when it gets back into the environment. Harvest of the Month is another good way that a lot of states have developed curriculum, and they use one seasonal and local product throughout the month to educate kids about that product, how it's used, how it's cooked, how it's grown, the whole cycle of that particular food product. So those are just some examples to give you a sense of how Farm to School could be implemented. Really quickly wanted to mention that, like I said, it's really a win-win situation for all that are involved in the project. Students, are eating more fruits and vegetables. Food service are seeing higher school meal participation, which leads to increased revenues for the school food service operations. Farmers are seeing a significant increase in income, but more so are really seeing schools as a good diversification of the market potential that their products can have. Parents, teachers, and community people are involved in the project, and there's really a feeling of community, a school community that is out there. And most recently, there are studies that are out there now that show that the local economy is benefited as well. A study from Oregon recently came out that said that Farm to School projects in 2 different school districts showed a 1.87 economic multiplier effect, which is significant. So just to give you a sense of what the impacts are and how we believe that this is a win-win situation for all that are involved. So the National Farm to School Network started about 2 years back with a 1 year before that planning process that went in, which brought together people from across the country to talk about what kind of coordination mechanism is required on a national level that would meet the needs of on-the-ground local projects. And through the planning process, we also came up with a couple of priorities that we thought really would help substantiate and promote the Farm to School movement at the national level. So right now, we are in the 2nd year of our operation. We have national staff. We have 4 national staff across the country, and we have split up the country into 8 different regions. Each region has a regional lead agency that coordinates efforts and acts as a hub for Farm to School information back and forth. from the states in the region to the national and to the regional level. And each of the regions also has a regional steering committee that is made up of state representatives. At the national level, we also have a group of national advisors and partners that include organizations such as the National PTA, the National Farmers Union, the Action for Healthy Kids, the School Nutrition Association, Slow Food, just to name a few. And these folks also bring in the expertise and the strategic direction of the network and contribute to that, which I think is really useful. So as you can see, there's a national level work that happens, there's the regional level work that happens, and at the state level also we have leads that go in and provide assistance to projects. So the core priorities, like I mentioned, these are priorities that came in from projects across the state when we surveyed them, saying that the national network should be working on these things: networking, media and marketing, information services, training and technical assistance, policy, and research and evaluation. I'm going to cover everything and tell you, I'm going to cover everything except the policy core priority, which Megan is going to cover, the next speaker. And I'm going to tell you the resources and the services that are available through the network on these priorities. So moving on, in terms of networking, you have an access to a good network of farm-to-school experts that have been doing farm-to-school projects for several years now. The staff, the regional lead agencies, the regional steering committees, the advisors, the partners really are the people that you can tap into really easily. Just with a click of a button, you can send them an email or just call them. We do facilitate local and state meetings as well. So, for example, just last month there was a statewide meeting in Arkansas that was facilitated by the National Farm-to-School Network. We helped them set up the agenda. There were about 200 people that attended that meeting, and 3 staff from the national network were there, also including our regional lead agency for that region, and we helped conduct a whole bunch of workshops there and help facilitate the agenda for the meeting. So we do that. There are also regional gatherings that happen through our regional lead agencies that bring together people to think about what the strategic direction of the work in the region should be. And like John mentioned in the introduction, we have a National Farm to Cafeteria Conference that's coming up in May in Detroit, Michigan, which is a gathering of about 600 to 650 people typically come to this kind of conference, which is a great venue for you to get in and network with other people that are doing it. How can you join our network? On our website, farmtoschool.org, there's a button that says Join Our Network. You can just click on it, sign on, and become a member, and then you'll be on our mailing list. Moving on in terms of media and marketing, we have media and marketing and outreach person, Deborah Eschmeyer, whose contact information is on our website. We provide a lot of templates and press release templates and ghost op-eds that Deb works with. We provide help with marketing events and key milestones that are happening in terms of farm to school. For example, Maryland had a homegrown week a couple of months back where Deb worked with them to create media and create promotional activities for the event. So that kind of support is available to all farm to school projects across the country. Moving on to information services, our user-generated website is farmtoschool.org. You can go in and put in your information about your project, about your event, about your organization. We have an introductory farm-to-school brochure which can be available for your conferences, for your events. We have a whole slew of fact sheets and reports and case studies that are available free of charge on our website. Everything is free of charge for free download. We have a free monthly e-newsletter as well, so when you sign up on when you join our network, you get on our mailing list, you will receive a free e-newsletter, which is on a monthly basis really a compilation of key things that are happening. We also have some wonderful videos through the One Tray campaign that are up on the website as well, which are introductory videos about farm to school. We provide training and technical assistance as well. We get close to 1,000 queries for technical assistance per quarter through our website and through other avenues. We assist people over the phone, over email, as well as in person and by conducting site visits. And there's a lot of toolkits and trainings that are available. We are also available to conduct workshops, and we typically do workshops at national conferences like the School Nutrition Association, the American Public Health Association, and a whole slew of farming and food systems conferences as well. We have, through the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, who are our evaluators, we have 4 research sites that are currently being evaluated, and the names are listed on the slide. Results from this evaluation would be available in the next couple of months. We hope to see some results, but more importantly, the tools that have been used by our evaluators to do the evaluations at these sites will be compiled into a toolkit, and free access to that toolkit would be available for anybody who's interested in starting a farm-to-school evaluation, and that assistance in terms of doing the evaluation would also be made available. This is my contact information, but you can get a hold of me or any of the national staff or the regional lead agencies in your region to address any questions you have. We are also on Facebook and Twitter, and our website, like I said, is farmtoschool.org. Please feel free to go in, and you can ask us questions to that as well, but you can give us a call or send us an email as well. With that, I'm going to pass over to Megan and go ahead and introduce Megan, who's going to cover the policy core priority of the network and talk a little bit about the policy work that we're doing. Megan Lott is the policy coordinator for the National Network and the Community Food Security Coalition, and she works on federal and state policy efforts to promote farm-to-school and local food systems. Megan is originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and has a background in nutrition and public health. She has previously worked at the Capital Area Food Bank in Washington, D.C., and with the Food Research and Action Center, or FRAC. Over to you, Megan, for policy work.
Great. Thank you, Anu. I'm really excited to be here today and excited that we have so many attendees who want to learn about farm to school. That's great. So I'm going to start a little, if I can have my next slide, by talking about what the National Network does. And we don't have a lot of time to give you a lot of details, so I'm going to give you the basic overview and then make you go look for the details yourself, unfortunately. Next, please. So the National Network is involved with policy on a variety of levels, and basically I'm going to talk about 3: legislatively at the national level, administratively, and at the state level. And I don't know if I don't have control, someone can advance my slides. Thank you. And next. Basically just giving a highlight of some of our national legislative efforts. We had some really great wins in some previous pieces of legislation, most notably in the 2004 Child Nutrition Reauthorization. We had some language authorized called Access to Local Foods in School Gardens. That was Section 122, if anyone loves reading federal policy, that would provide funding for a competitive grants program. For farm-to-school projects. The issue was the program was authorized, but it never received any funding. So now in the 2009 Child Nutrition Reauthorization, which I'll get to a little more in a minute, we're actually looking to get that more funding, mandatory funding for that program. Another recent legislative gain for farm-to-school was in the 2008 Farm Bill. We were able to get geographic preference language passed, and the basic gist of that is that before you were, it was illegal to say, I want a Michigan apple. You could just write your procurement bids to get an apple. Now with this legislation having been passed, you can actually preference that geographically and say, I want a Michigan apple. So that's been something that has been and we expect to continue to be very helpful for farm-to-school programs. And actually just recently, USDA Food and Nutrition Services put out a new memo really defining what minimal processing is, and there have been some really exciting advancements there on what they will and will not allow, and you can find a link to that memo on the foodsecurity.org website in our most recent newsletter, or you can go to USDA FNS's memo page. Another exciting gain was the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, which was originally a pilot program serving only 4 states and 1 Indian tribal organization, was expanded to all states in the 2008 Farm Bill. And this provides at least $100,000 per state in funding for schools to provide additional fruits and vegetables as a daily snack. And the exciting thing about these funds is that they can be used to purchase local products. Next, please. So currently, as I mentioned, in the current child nutrition reauthorization, we are really trying to get mandatory funding for farm-to-school programs. We're trying to get $50 million in mandatory funding, and what that is it's, $50 million over 5 years, so that's $10 million per year. For a competitive grants program that would really be there to help provide the tools necessary to support planning, implementation, training, and technical assistance for communities to implement these farm-to-school programs. And this funding has the potential to fund between 100 and 500 new projects per year based at a minimal funding level of $25,000 per grant award and the maximum of $100,000 per grant award. Next, please. So as basically in working towards this mandatory funding, there's been a group of people that have come together that are calling themselves the One Tray Team, and that is the National Farmer School Network, the Community Food Security Coalition, and School Food Focus. And we developed this beautiful document called Nourishing the Nation One Tray at a Time, which really outlines the background of farm-to-school programs and our policy asks. And you can find that online at all of our websites, including a website called onetray.org, and I have all of these websites at the end of my presentation. From this beautiful document and some early legislative efforts and having some congressional briefings for members and their staff, a new partnership was also born. We're calling ourselves the Farm to School Collaborative, and this also involves the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition and the Wallace Center. Next, please. So in addition to our legislative efforts on the Hill and advocating for child nutrition reauthorization, we've also been working with the new administration to really further farm to school and local food systems. And I'm just going to briefly highlight these efforts because I know Lauren LaCourte, our USDA person on the line, is going to give you a much more detailed description. But basically, we've been working with the Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food initiative, and more specifically with the Farm to School Tactical Teams within that initiative. And basically, the One Tray groups, the three groups I mentioned just a minute ago, the Community Food Security Coalition, the National Farm to School Network, and School Food Focus, developed this background document for USDA called What USDA Can Do that has 10 key priorities for the administration related to farm to school, and you can also find that document on the onetray.org website. But specifically, we've been working with the tactical teams to help them identify locations for farm to school tactical team site visits, to provide them ideas for developing a research agenda, and also some ideas for potential pilot project. Next, please. And then I mentioned we also do a little bit with state policy, and basically what we've been doing, our biggest effort around state policy is trying to track it. And to date, 24 states have passed legislation supporting farm-to-school programs, and I have the categories basically. These are very general. You know, these policies generally establish an official farm-to-school program recognized by the state, or create a task force where it gets a group of people, almost like a food policy council sort of situation, around the table to start researching the viability of a program or to take the program to the next level. And some states provide state funding. There are some really great examples of what these different legislations are, and you can link to the full legislative text, and you can find that on our website as well. Next, please. So with the Farm to School Policy Resources on the web, there's a number of places you can visit, and I'm just going to briefly mention both websites. Farmtoschool.org has some great policy resources, from the Nourishing the Nation One Tray at a Time document to talking points about farm to school. Frequently asked questions was really developed in case people want to go out and contact their own legislators or at city, state, local, national government. That gives you the tools. It was basically a brief idea of the questions I most frequently get asked on my Hill visits, and we translated that into some useful answers, hopefully, for people out there in the field. So this has a lot of different backgrounds and priority information related to child nutrition as well. Next, please. And then at foodsecurity.org, on their policy page, we also have an advocacy toolkit and a section with USDA local food support. So there you'll find links to several memos that Deputy Secretary Kathleen Merrigan has released regarding local food systems and the the agency's efforts to work to enhance local food systems. And some farm-to-school outcomes from the 2008 Farm Bill. There's more information about those that I mentioned earlier. And again, that state-by-state listing. Next, please. So here is, on this next slide, my contact information, again, with all 3 websites. They're all great resources. And our pretty little one tray and farm to school logo. And I will hand it off to Lauren to give a little more detail about the administration's efforts. And just to briefly introduce Lauren, Lauren LaCourte is a program analyst for the USDA Food and Nutrition Services Child Nutrition Programs, and she serves as the lead for the USDA's Farm to School Tactical Team. The Farm to School Tactical Team is charged with expanding the Farm to School connection in the child nutrition programs, such as the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs. Lauren began her career with USDA in 2004 and has worked in various federal community nutrition programs like the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, the Summer Food Program, and WIC. Prior to USDA, Lauren has worked in these same programs at the School Nutrition Association and the Arizona Department of Education. We're so happy to have her with us today, and in today's presentation, Lauren will provide an introduction to the Farm to School Tactical Team. She'll highlight the team's goals and objectives and share how a school district can request a visit from the team. So thanks so much, Lauren.
Before I begin, there's one correction to my first slide here that I need to mention. On the email address there is a period. There's not supposed to be a period between farm to school and at fns.usda.gov. So apologize for that, but just wanted to clarify and indicate that correction. Okay, so as Megan has mentioned, I'm going to briefly discuss the USDA Farm to School Tactical Team and highlight the team's goals and objectives and share how the school district can go about requesting a visit from the team. So let's begin with how the tactical team came to be. At a department level, an initiative titled Know Your Farmer, Know Your Food was formed as a USDA-wide effort to create new economic opportunities by better connecting consumers with local producers. The initiative focuses on the importance of understanding where our food comes from and how it gets on our plate. The Farm to School Tactical Team was created from this initiative. The team is comprised of 4 staff members from Food and Nutrition Services and 2 staff members from the Agriculture Marketing Service. We also have regional resource members at each of our 7 regional offices and various other resource members at the headquarters office, both at FNS and AMS. The purpose of the tactical team is to support local and regional food systems by facilitating linkages between schools and their local food producers. The tactical team will work with local and state authorities, school districts, farmers, and community partners to develop mechanisms to assist schools in assessing local markets, enable food producers to effectively service their local schools, and facilitate communication between interested stakeholders. To assist in the growth of farm to school activities, the team will visit 9 school districts of varied demographics and characteristics, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. And we'll use the site visit information to analyze and assess which variables are most influential in supporting or deterring the success of farm to school activities, as well as identifying trends and best practices. We've begun the development of a farm to school website which will contain resources, best practice information, guidance to schools who have not yet started farm to school activities or like to expand their existing efforts. In addition, the team will engage in webinars with interested parties such as this group to allow for information sharing of farm to school obstacles and successes. As far as long-term goals, the Farm to School Tactical Team will provide access to resources and information on beginning and maintaining farm to school activities for schools, farmers, and local community members, provide technical assistance to assist schools and farmers in development, progression, and/or sustainability of farm to school activities, and identify obstacles faced by schools and farmers in implementing and/or sustaining farm to school activities and provide suggested solutions. Now, more information on how a school district can express their interest in being considered for a site visit. Schools may express their interest by visiting the shown website. They're on the slide. And on that page, there will be a link to the main Farm to School webpage, where there will be yet another link to submit your interest. And the website will be launched tomorrow afternoon, so I don't have the exact URL that I could provide to you at this time, but that website that's listed there is the main Child Nutrition Division page, and that will get you to the Farm to School page. So once the school has submitted their interest, the school food service director will be contacted via an email so that we at USDA can learn more about the Farm to School activities and about some logistical and operational information about the school. And as I mentioned, we're just beginning to develop the website, so there will be more coming in the very near future. Because the tactical team wants to ensure that we visit a variety of schools, we've come up with a list of variables we'll be considering when making our selection as to which 9 visits we'll focus on. And also I should mention at this point too, it is possible that more visits will be conducted in subsequent years. It's just that this year in 2010, 9 schools will be visited, like I said, in 2010. So the variables the team will be considering include those variables listed on your slide there. We want to make sure that we get a good regional representation, meaning that we'll be visiting at least one site in each region. We'd like to visit a rural, urban, suburban, and tribal schools, large and small districts, schools that are self-operating or have vended meals, or schools that work with food service management companies. We'd also like to visit schools with various distribution models, meaning schools that purchase directly from the farmers, or they may be purchasing from a farmer cooperative or through a buying cooperative, or they may be working through their food service management company or ordering through their traditional wholesaler. So we want to make sure we visit a variety of those models. We're also interested in different stages of the farm to school implementation. We really want to understand what challenges and obstacles the schools and growers are facing when implementing farm to school activities. Also, it would be great for us to visit schools that are practicing new or novel ideas that help them implement their farm to school efforts. And I think that is the end of my time here, so I'll just close by saying that all of us on the tactical team are really looking forward to getting out to the schools and the farms to see firsthand what is being done. And thank you for allowing me to participate in this webinar.
Great, thanks, Lauren. This is Anupama, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce the next speaker, which is Doug Davis. Doug Davis is Food Service Director Extraordinaire. Doug has been the Food Service Director for Burlington Schools in Vermont for about 10 years now and has implemented a district-wide farm-to-school project that is a model for other communities. Doug has won the School Nutrition Association's Food Service Director of the Year Award for the Northeast in 2006 and has also received the Food Service Achievement Management Excellence, or FAME, Silver Star Special Achievement Award for 2007, and he was nominated for his outstanding leadership in the farm to school movement and his dedication to feeding kids. Doug is also the only person that I know who has farm to school on his license plate, which is pretty phenomenal. And he's truly an inspiration to many food service professionals. Doug is going to share his story about how the Burlington Farm to School project got started and how it's really expanded and has become a model for other communities. We're really happy to have you here, Doug. Over to you.
Thank you, Anupama. That's very nice. I would just like to give a quick overview of the program that we've got going here in Burlington. We started in 2003. If I could get my first slide, please. There it is. We started in 2003, which in farm to school talk is like an ancient program. And we've had a lot of community support, which I'd like to highlight during my short time today. And really also, I would like to highlight my administrative and district support here within our town, our city. Next, please. The Burlington School Food Project has a mission statement that we try to work from as we come up with plans to move forward and to implement throughout our schools and our community. And it is simply a farm-to-school program that connects students and their families with whole, fresh, and local foods to improve the health of our community. And everything that we do goes back to our community, because in a child nutrition program that is unfunded, as most of them are, it's so important not only to connect to that community, but to get the community to feel a connection back so that they're comfortable in allowing their children to purchase meals from us. Next, please. As I said, it started in 2003. And one of the things that's really important, again, is the community partnership that you'll see on the right-hand side. Vermont Feed, Food Education Every Day, is a statewide organization that is affiliated with Shelburne Farms, and they are in the schools all over the state, not just Burlington, but they do come to us often, and we work together to move our program in a way that helps to benefit all other schools, not just Burlington. Anything we learn, we like to move to other schools as well. Some of the key points in the timeline that you see on the left, we entered into schools in 2004 and just started taste testing with kids, trying to see what kids liked, what they didn't like. One of the neatest things that we found out with the parent volunteers that we had was in a trash survey, a very simple trash survey, we found that students were throwing out equal amount of food by weight that they brought from their home versus what we put on their tray, which got us thinking that it wasn't necessarily the food we were serving, but sometimes the environment in which it was being served. The loud cafeteria, the line that doesn't move quite fast enough, the lunch period that isn't long enough. 2005, we started with farmer forums, where we sit down with farmers, discuss what we bought, what we need, and we sign growing contracts with farmers right around this time of year, December, January. 2006, with a grant from Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, we hired the first farm-to-school coordinator. At that time, the first in the country. I don't know if it still is the first in the country, and that's become a really integral part of what we do. And we have continued to increase the amount of food we're buying locally and increase the different types of foods that we are offering. Next, please. Burlington, Vermont is, it's like, I like to call it a little fantasy land. We are one of the best places in the country to raise a family. We are one of the healthiest cities in the nation, and we have a really amazing group of leaders here in town. The slide actually is a little bit behind. Our high school now has 52 languages, 52. It's hard to imagine in a school community with only 3,800 students in school that we have 52 languages spoken in Burlington. Vermont is also one of the least diverse states in the nation, but in our high school, you certainly wouldn't see that coming through. It is just a wonderful fabric of so many different cultures in our school, and that is reflected back in the food. Also, the local food movement's very big here. Vermont leads the nation in the consumption of local food, leads the nation in the number of CSAs and farmers markets per capita, and it really has become just a mecca for local foods. Next, please. One of the most important things I think that sometimes gets overlooked in a community when everybody gets very excited about bringing farm to school into their kitchens and into their cafeterias is the importance of bringing the food service folks along. There are a lot of communities around Burlington who have seen some of the progress we've made, and the people in the community try to implement these programs without using the expertise that the school already has in the food service folks that are in the buildings. So all of these photos that you see are of my staff working with kids, my staff training with local food, and the top right-hand corner is, just a typical salad bar. And I say typical because most days in Vermont are like today. It's 4 o'clock or so on the East Coast, so it's dark in Vermont. It's cold, it's like 0. And we still have school, and we still need to feed kids. So, although we do work with local as often as we can, it is important to realize that schools are open 180 days regardless of the weather. Next, please. We also bring chefs and farmers into our school because we think it's so important that kids, as Anupama was saying earlier, realize and learn where their foods come from. So we try to combine our community members who are farmers, our community members who are restaurant folks, to get into our cafeterias and simply be a common face. We don't do a local food day, week, or month. We serve local food every single day. So for us, our farmers are very, very visible in our schools. I get calls from parents in the spring or in the fall that their kids will see someone at the farmer's market, and they'll run up to them and say, "Hey, Mom, this is the farmer that brings my carrots to school." And that's a very powerful message for a parent to see out in the community a farmer who also has a connection to the school. Because what's so important to schools right now is the actual participation in the program. Because with the economy being the way it is, it's really difficult for schools, especially schools that are operating just on reimbursement rates from the feds, to be able to make their program successful. On the bottom right-hand side of that slide, you'll see that there's someone handing out samples. What that is that we've tried different items for kids to try. We take it off of the service line so that any student who is in the cafeteria, whether they're buying lunch or not, can participate. And the goal is just to get them to try something. The person handing out in this photograph is an adult. Normally, the food is created by students and distributed by students. Next, please. We also think it's really important to get parents involved, just because the reputation, if you will, of child nutrition programs over time has not always been the best. And we believe that some of the way to change that is to be visible in our community with parents, visible in our community with business owners, business professionals, farmers, teachers, administrators. So we try very hard to get folks in as much as we can. Vermont has a wonderful farm-to-school grant program that one of our schools has gotten in the past, and we work with that school that got that grant with us to serve kids breakfast using local products, getting kids in the kitchens, trying to create a product in which kids have the ability to take maybe something they learned in math, science, or history and translate it into food. Also, you see on the top right, we're threshing beans with kids. Obviously we are not able to grow enough red beans to fulfill our red bean need in schools for chilies and whatnot, but it's really important for kids to see where that comes from and how it works. The farmer in the picture, Thomas, is also the person who brings us our carrots every week, so he's a familiar face. Kids are always willing to take part in the things that he's willing to offer. And again, it makes a really big impression on parents and students as they move through our schools. Next, please. We have a painfully short growing season here, though what we try to do is expand on the season as best as we can. What you see in this photo here, on the left-hand side is a group of students from what's called the Healthy City Youth Farm. And that started out about 2004, our association with them. It's a program that employs students 8th grade to 10th grade. They have some land right here in town, and they were growing product. We would buy some product from them, but primarily our relationship with them was as a summer meal feeding site. They had a site, we would send them their meals, and that was really the end of it. In our attempt to grow our association with community groups, we started working with these folks, and it's just been great. I mean, now, as you can see, they are picking strawberries on the left-hand side. Vermont's strawberries are amazing. We're very fortunate, though they only last for 10 or 15 days. We have an amazing farmer right in our community who always puts aside a certain day for us to come and pick. And the students go, they pick, they freeze, and we're able to then use those strawberries for our students throughout the school year. Next, please. As I said, our growing season is somewhat short. So during the time in which the products are available, we will bring products in bulk, and we will process them. In this photo right here, you're seeing the strawberries that were picked that day or the previous day being cored and frozen. There are volunteers doing green beans. There's butternut squash being done. There's zucchini being shredded, and then zucchini bread, as you can see on the bottom right. The zucchini bread has become a really amazing staple for us in our program, and has also become a really great vehicle for us to serve more local products. We have made zucchini carrot bread, we've made applesauce bread, we've made apple bread, pumpkin bread, squash bread, anything that we can get locally that we can then use to make that bread. The kids are now in a place where they're willing to accept it. Another thing that has been really terrific about this processing project is that we've been able to take products that we get through the commodity meal program and combine them with what sometimes might be a more expensive ingredient and spread out that cost in a way in which we can now use more local product while balancing the costs using commodities and getting this product processed at a time in which the product is in high supply, and while there are employees that are able to do the work in a kitchen that is relatively quiet because the school year is over. Next, please. This is a graph. It's not been updated for 2009, but the numbers have increased. In 2009, we will have returned $30,000 back into our surrounding community. And as you can see, the numbers have gone really crazy. The kids are really into the local. They're into fresh. They're into whole. It is something that has now simply become just a strand in the fabric of what we do. And I'm sure that the students here would not stand for the product going backwards at this point. So I'm thinking that the direction that we're heading has been really very successful. Another thing that we have found, when we first started in 2003, 2004, we focused pretty heavily on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And now we are in 2009, so all the students that have gone through, or who are now in our high school, have gone through the middle school programs that we have in place. Those items, those things like taste tests, more students working in our kitchens, farmers visiting classrooms and cafeterias. So now the respect that the students have for the meal program in the high school has increased incredibly at a time when, when we started this, we could not have approached, 16, 17-year-olds and talked about local food. The interest just wasn't there. But now that they have now seen this since the 6th or 7th grade, they feel an ownership to their program and really feel that they're being heard in what they want to see. Next, please. Fresh produce has increased incredibly as well, as has our local direct from farm purchase. We work currently with 21 farms, and we are trying to honestly increase that blue slot, the local through distributors. We would love to have local farms deliver directly through our distribution channel for a number of different reasons. Insurance, bids, delivery times, purchase orders, payment, all of that. But we have decided as a district, with the help of my, the permission of my superintendent, to just navigate those problems as they come, as opposed to shutting the door on local. It is so important that we simply try not to get sucked into the, well, you can't buy direct from a farm for whatever reason, and try to increase the amount of product that we buy. anytime we buy anything, the conversation around the table is that a product we can buy or source locally, or a product that is being produced locally? Also, you'll see the large increase from 2003, 2008 comes primarily from the fact that students in surveys said they wanted salad bars in their schools. And we now do salad bar from pre-K to 12. It's available every day as part of our meal choice. They don't have to choose it or something else. It just comes as part of the meal. And we recognize there's an additional cost to that. We simply try to balance those costs in other ways. Next, please. I included this slide because it's really important for people to recognize that our menus in our schools look very similar to the menus in your schools, most likely. It's still a very basic, handheld burger-type meal most of the time, or a lot of the time. But what we're doing, and this is the month of March. If you're familiar with New England in March, there's 2 or 3 feet of snow on the ground. It's starting to get sunny. The days are starting to get longer, but there's not a lot of stuff growing other than maple syrup, which we do incorporate. But the goal is to not be afraid to have a standard school lunch menu, because you don't want to scare your customers away. You want to be sure and have items that they still consider comfort food that you're simply making in a healthier way. All of our rolls, for instance, for our burgers are made right here locally with at a place that is certified peanut-free and made with 100% whole grain. Also, you'll see on the 20th of the month, that was the first day of spring here, and we serve those strawberries that are harvested in July as part of Vermont Strawberry Shortcake. And the kids are now looking forward to that item as we've run it for several years now on the first day of spring. Next, please. Another thing that's really important is that, as I said earlier, we try to spread out all of the things that we do in Vermont, in our schools, to try to get other schools to do it. The Vermont Junior Iron Chef is one of those things where we invite schools to bring teams, and we have we give them a list of 10 local items that are available, mostly root vegetables and storage crops, and they come up with items that are replicable in school meals, and we try very hard to get these items from those schools then on those school menus. And it's really been an amazing, amazing event, and we're on the 3rd annual now. We have probably 50 or 60 schools participate from all corners of the state, and it's really been terrific. Next, please. Farm-to-school arts is a way that we try to raise money for our program. We have 10 local artists in Vermont who donated some artwork. We make these note cards available to anybody who would like to sell them as a fundraiser in their school, with the hopes that these cards would be used to fund farm-to-school products in the school in which they're sold. Our school generates some revenue from this, and it has made a big difference in just getting the word out there as far as how we are able to market our program. Another thing that we do that we've just started this year is a bread CSA, where we have found a really terrific local artisan bakery who is using all organic ingredients in their breads, and we really wanted to be able to offer that bread to kids, but knew we couldn't afford it because the amount of money we have for bread is so small. So what we were able to do is work a deal out with the bakery where they allow us to sell shares, 1 loaf a week for 10 weeks. We sell that bread to our staff members who work at the school. We have about 100 members in our CSA right now, and that generated enough money for us to then put back to the bakery to allow us to serve artisan bread on a couple of our sandwich lines. And that's really been very, very successful. And again, it has really generated additional community support. Next, please. The last thing I want to touch on is that I've taken this model that we've used in Vermont and brought it down to our sister city in the Dominican Republic, because they have so many farms, so many kids, and so much food insecurity that what we tried to do is match what we were doing to get just to try to see what we could do to enhance the lives of those children down there as well. Plus, it's a really cool place to go, and it's cold in Vermont. But more importantly, it was a model that we were able to fit in there with the help of Shelburne Farms and the Vermont Institute on the Caribbean. Next, please. And that is the license plate that Anupama had referenced before. It just helps me keep Vermont Farm to School in the forefront. When I get in my car every day, I know that I'm doing the right thing every day for our kids here in town. And thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, Doug, I'm sure all on this call agree. Fascinating, wonderful, inspirational story. Just one more guest here, one more panelist. I want to introduce Steve Warschauer. Steve Warschauer is the Food Safety Coordinator for the National Good Food Network. A farmer and food distributor, Steve is focused on the challenge of developing food safety rules that work for food producers as well as food regulators. Here's Steve to expand on food safety, the National Good Food Network, and Farm to School.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Warschauer. I'm the National Good Food Network Food Safety Coordinator, and I have just a couple minutes in which I'd like to let you know about the food safety work I've been facilitating for NGFN and how farm-to-school projects can participate in and hopefully benefit from this aspect of NGFN work. My responsibilities include creating and maintaining a food safety FAQ, organizing the Food Safety Committee, and keeping abreast of and reporting on the latest developments in food safety. NGFN maintains an FAQ page which addresses terms and concepts in food safety, which is updated periodically. You can find the FAQ at ngfn.org/foodsafety. If there are terms or concepts that you are encountering that seem fuzzy and that you would want to have clarified, we can do that and add the information to our FAQ. Please direct those requests to contact@ngfn.org. The NGFN Food Safety Committee is an active practice-sharing forum in which the National Good Food Network's regional team leads have shared their approaches to gaining GAP certification for growers and meeting GAP requirements of buyers. The committee meets via a monthly conference call which focuses on emerging opportunities and challenges for the call participants, specifically in regard to GAP implementation. The call is now being opened for participation by organizations or buyers who are working to address food safety and GAP issues in order to increase access to important markets such as farm to school. For information on future calls, email us at contact@ngfn.org. As NGFN Food Safety Coordinator, along with the support of Wallace Center staff, I provide a monthly executive summary of ongoing federal-level food safety activity, including legislative movement as well as agency activity at FDA and USDA. This summary is meant to help participants stay current and ready to respond to action alerts from our policy partners, such as the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition and the National Organic Coalition. I'm also active on behalf of NGFN in the policy work that is led by our collaborating organizations. GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practices, a series of best practice guidelines for keeping food safe on the farm and through farm processing. As NGFN Food Safety Coordinator, I participate in the National GAP Harmonization Initiative, which is an effort by mostly large produce buyers and producers and shippers to create a unified GAP standard. Their commitment to eliminate supermetrics is a chance to end the use of food safety as a competitive advantage. This GAP harmonization initiative welcomes the views and experience of producers and buyers of all scales and explicitly seeks to create a GAP approach that is scale appropriate and process sensitive. A major focus of the NGFN food safety discussion has been to look at proven approaches to food safety and GAP that reduce the cost and the audit burden on individual farms. This is the goal of most alternative GAP programs, such as Global GAP. For those who aren't familiar with them, Global GAP is a voluntary, worldwide, private, pre-farm gate GAP benchmarking and standard setting organization. One option in Global Gap is group certification, where a producer group develops a robust internal training, audit, and quality management program, and through a specially trained food safety coordinator, develops an interface with an external third-party auditor. When effective, this approach raises individual farm standards, reduces food safety compliance costs, while simultaneously satisfying buyer requirements. NGFN is actively seeking opportunities to partner with Global Gap and with producer groups who might utilize the group approach to food safety to meet buyer gap requirements. We're also interested in cases where a buyer wishes to purchase from a group of producers who've been unable to gain gap certification on a farm-by-farm basis. If either of these situations fit you or producers that you may be working with, please let us know. The NGFN Food Safety Committee welcomes the chance to collaborate with Farm to School Network. We especially welcome network members who are actively working to overcome food safety compliance issues as barriers to market. Feel free to type your questions to me. And that's all I've got for you this afternoon.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Okay, feel free to continue to ask some questions. We have a ton of great questions. I just want to let you know that we already have 2 emails from participants interested in joining in on food safety, so that's wonderful. Keep them coming. Let me just lead just a short Q&A session. We don't have too much time, but one question that was asked, I'm going to direct to Lauren, which is a question about the nature of the coordination between the USDA tactical teams and the National Farm to School network. Also, Anupama, if you'd like to take that as well.
Well, this is Lauren, and I'll go ahead and start. As Megan mentioned in her presentation, well, for starters, USDA and the National Farm to School Network are working very closely together. The National Farm to School Network has been at this longer than the tactical team and has a lot of experience that the tactical team is welcome we welcome hearing their experience. And as Megan mentioned in her presentation, the tactical team is working with the National Farm to School Network in identifying some schools that the tactical team may consider for visiting for the purposes that I explained in my presentation. And I do have regular meetings with the National Farm to School Network members and just keeping each other in the loop as things are moving along very quickly with this initiative. Anupa, I don't know if you have any other things to add.
I mean, nothing major to add other than saying that we are working with the USDA tactical teams, and like Lauren said, are in regular contact with them on all kinds of things: the site visits, the work that they're doing, the website, all those questions that have come up in the question box are being worked out together. So we appreciate partnering with them on it.
Great. Okay. There were also a couple questions on liability insurance. It could be a burden, particularly for small and very small producers. What efforts have been made to help with that problem? I don't know, Anupama, if you have any ideas of any programs, or Doug, has that been a difficulty for you?
Doug, if you want to take that.
We haven't had a lot of trouble with liability insurance. We visit the farms, and the farmers are carrying insurance. Our state doesn't require that there is a certain number. Most of them do carry, though, $1 million policies, which from them telling me it's just a couple of $100s a year to obtain. But that's one of the reasons we're trying to get so many more people to distribute directly through our main vendor. But the folks that have started doing door-to-door weekly deliveries are carrying at least $1 million. Some of the larger food service management companies are requiring that the farms have $5 million. Our school does not require more than $1 million, and I've never been told that I have to ask for any.
Yeah, the $1 million number is what I've heard from other states, some other districts in other states as well. And one example that I can provide is where a group of small farmers didn't really have, each one of them did not have that level of liability insurance, but where they banded together to form a collaborative, and then the collaborative had, had that $1 million liability insurance that they could provide. So that's, I think farmers are sort of thinking creatively about getting at that too.
And this is Megan. Actually, one of our staff members at the Community Food Security Coalition is currently examining this issue and looking at food safety standards and liability assurance for farmers, and hopefully we'll get some good information on that, but that is something we're currently looking into more.
Doug, we have a question about discussing the pros and cons of buying local produce direct from the farmers versus through your produce vendor.
The pros and cons of buying direct versus not direct?
Yeah.
Definitely the pros are the relationship that we have with the farmer. Often if we buy direct from the farmer, I can get the farmer to come to my school, meet my kids, do a demo, maybe even get kids to visit a farm. That's a huge benefit for us. The negative, many schools are limiting the number of purchase orders and invoices that they'll process because there's an expense to that. Many schools don't like having trucks back into their loading dock during the school day. Often your primary vendor will come really early in the day or late in the day. And farmers don't always have that flexibility and may very well be coming to school when there are a lot of children outside, maybe recess or for physical education. And another thing is that it's often easier for a school to have all those items on one truck. So I think there's definitely pros and cons on both sides.
Okay. Are there national requirements as to what schools must require from farmers in order to buy from them other than liability insurance? For example, GAP and other food safety issues.
Is that for me?
Sure.
In Vermont, there are no GAP standards at this time that we have to follow, but I do visit all of the schools in which that we buy food from.
Okay.
There is federally, in order for commodity program money to be used, it's a rule that the farms be GAP certified.
Okay. Okay, good. All right, well, there are a ton more questions, and I feel terrible that we can't get to them all, but we will be posting the questions and answers that were typed in by our panelists and presenters today on our website. I really want to thank you all for attending this National Good Food Network webinar. I'd like to express my deep thanks to all of the presenters today, Anupama Joshi, Megan Lott, Lauren LaCourte, Doug Davis, and Steve Warshauer. I also want to thank Deb Eschmeyer for helping to coordinate this esteemed panel and for answering a whole lot of questions during the presentation. I want to make you all aware of a request for proposals for workshops and posters at the Farm to Cafeteria Conference in Detroit this May. The overarching goal of the conference is to include information on all forms of institutional food purchasing, so I'm sure many of you in the audience today have great information to share. The proposal deadline is January 15, so I want to be sure to call your attention to it here. You can visit farmtocafeteriaconference.com, spell farm to cafeteria all out, no spaces, for details on the request for proposals as well as the electronic form to submit a proposal. This webinar will be archived, as I mentioned, along with all of the previous and future National Good Food Network webinars. Go to ngfn.org/webinars. We'll post the recorded webinar, the slides from the presentations, the written answers to your excellent questions, and all of the relevant web links that have been discussed here, so all in one place. I'm sure several of you would be interested in some of our previous webinars, also posted at ngfn.org/webinars. The ngfn.org site is a great place for learning and connecting around scaling up good food. Add your name and information to our growing database of people, organizations, and funders working on good food. Adding your profile can help to increase your networking opportunities, so I encourage you to do that. The NGFN webinars are on the third Thursday of each month at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, so the next one is January 21. The topic for that webinar is a recently released book called Community Food Enterprises. This is a joint project between the Wallace Center and the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, Bali, and it was funded by the Gates Foundation and the Kellogg Foundation. Michael Schumann, author of several books, including The Small Mart Revolution, explores 24 domestic and international food businesses that have a strong local community component. There's some great success stories in scaling up good food in this group. To learn more about the project and to download the full book or case studies, visit communityfoodenterprise.org. It's a fabulous news site and we're really excited about it. We'll be sending out registration information for that webinar soon, so make sure you get on the NGFN mailing list for more information about that. There's also the opportunity to sign up for the mailing list at the closing survey, which I encourage you to participate in. It'll pop right up. Questions, suggestions, interest in food safety, we want to hear from you. You can email us at contact@ngfn.org. And once again, thank you very much.